Um, Namaste, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We have Gaurav Rastogi today. He's a Silicon Valley resident and also a Dhyana and a yoga teacher. And he's been teaching for over 10 years. And he has developed practical study guides based on the Bhagavad Gita and also Vedanta philosophy. A keen student of our philosophy, and is also a board member of the Hindu Community Center or Institute in California, USA. The topic is Karma Yoga and Spiritual Care, Learning to Serve. Over to you, Gauravji.
Namaskar, and thank you very much to Indic Studies Toronto for inviting me to come and speak. My name is Gaurav Rastogi, and I invite you to join me in just sitting in a meditative silence before we begin. So please sit comfortably, sit in any comfortable posture, sitting with the back straight, back, neck, and head in a straight line. Close your eyes gently and relax the expression on the face. I'm going to chant Om 3 times and then I'll chant the opening prayer, Sahana Bhavatu. Bring your palms together in Namaskar Mudra. Pressing the palms together gently, touching the fingers together gently, and gently touching the back of the thumbs into the chest. Now bring your attention to the hollow space between the palms. Hold it right there. Pay attention to any vibration or sensation in your palms. I'm going to chant Om 3 times. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. 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 Inhale and chant. Sahana bhavatu, sahana bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu mavitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bend forward in a deep sense of surrender. Come back up, breathing in and gently bring your palms down. Keep them in your lap and then blinking, open your eyes. Namaskar. Namaskar. Today our topic is Karma Yoga and Spiritual Care. So naturally, you can expect to learn a little bit about Karma Yoga, a little bit about spiritual care, and a little bit about how you can learn to serve. My name is Gaurav Rastogi, and I'm based in Silicon Valley. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I have a regular conventional career, but I'm also interested in taking our Hindu wisdom from directly from the texts and through direct practice and converting it into an action and livable philosophy for modern times. And that's going to be part of the subject for today's conversation. I'm looking forward to interacting with you. So please feel free to type your questions and comments in the chat. I'm not looking at them right now, but I know Prasadji is. So continue to please type. We begin with water. Water is made of hydrogen and oxygen, both of which are gas at room temperature, but water is liquid and of course life-sustaining. How is it that two different things can combine and create something completely new? It's the same with Karma Yoga, where both the component parts of Karma Yoga are familiar to us. We know karma as this system, this law of cause and effect, where you do something and it comes back in some other form at some other time. That's karma. That's the theory of karma, and that's what is known and understood in common English language. Yoga, of course, is the joining of the lower self to the higher self, the yoking of the lower self to the higher self. What does it mean to come for to bring these two concepts together? What is karma yoga, and how can we practice karma yoga in our lives today? That's the subject of our conversation today. But I like to start many of my calls by many of my meetings by thinking of my classmates during engineering. These monkeys, they all through my 4 years of engineering undergrad, these monkeys here had been well, these or some other similar looking monkeys had been a continuous member of the engineering college I was at, and I had some opportunity to observe their behavior, and I noticed that these monkeys spend a lot of time doing whatever it is that they're doing in this photo, which is picking nits off each other, grooming each other. It turns out monkeys have a very specific social order, and this grooming each other and picking each other's nits, they keep very strong track of that. They keep track of how many times somebody helped somebody, how many times somebody showed their teeth to somebody else, who's who in the social order. So helping each other and being nice to each other or not being nice to each other, each of these have means something in the monkey society, and they're designed for that sort of interaction. Something similar, you can well imagine, is the case for the human society. Not that because, of course, we're also a primate species, but because also you can infer it's a factor of being human. And that's what we're going to talk about. We are born with a spirit of service. We're born with this desire to help each other and work with each other. This spirit of service is actually level free. What that means is you can serve a boss, but you can also serve your children. You can serve a loved one. You can serve God. You can serve people at any spectrum, any level in the hierarchy. So it is level free. The spirit of service is selfless. It is non-zero sum. You create a better society through the spirit of service. But it turns out there is a need to learn how to serve, how to learn this, and where do you practice it. Those are the things that I'm going to talk about today. Now, Karma Yoga is part of a triple braid of yoga, which is Karma Yoga, which is the path of action, Jnana Yoga, which is the path of wisdom, and Bhakti Yoga, which is the path of devotion or love and surrender. And conventionally, some teachers teach these as three independent paths, but a better way to look at these is a braid. They're interconnected with each other, and you cannot do one at the cost of the others. You do have to follow all three paths. But the path of action is the subject of our conversation today. I have done a series of talks on this on YouTube. So if you pull your phone out and point it at the QR code you're seeing over here, you will be redirected to a talk I did recently. Again, don't walk away from this call, but when you watch the recording, you'll be able to go back to that other talk. Now, Karma Yoga, broadly, to summarize for you right now, is directly connected to Swadharma, which is our own inner nature. It too is level free, involves a spirit of sacrifice. In fact, working with a spirit of sacrifice and all actions done in that spirit of sacrifice and towards greater good, that which we call loka sangraha, which is doing better for the society. Again, there is a need to learn it. A emphasis on excellence is also involved here. Yoga karmasu kaushalam, it's said in the Gita. And therefore, it requires continuous practice and improvement. There is a very deep sense of selflessness. The emphasis is not on your individualized self, but on society at large, that which we call loka samgraha. So, karma yoga is the practice, it's the path of action, it's the practice of selflessness in action, and also a practice of self expression. Your own inner nature, swadharma, is being expressed through this. Now, human beings evolved from my engineering classmates way back when, which is monkeys, some sort of primates, and we evolved to walk. We're a bipedal species, we have two long legs, and we're designed physically to walk. But yet, when we are born, we are unable to walk. Our parents must teach us to walk. It's the same with karma yoga and selfless service. While we have an innate capacity to serve, we are we do not have the knowledge of how to serve. We must be taught that by our society. In the absence of that, imagine having legs but not being taught how to walk and having to crawl around. How useful is that? How satisfying is that? Possibly not too satisfying. It's the same that most of us experience in our ordinary lives today, which is we want to serve. It's innate to us. And yet, because we haven't learned it, we haven't really finished our education. We go through our entire life, our entire career, and and then we still realize there's something remaining. We haven't done anything from other people. We haven't served, we haven't derived that satisfaction and joy from serving other people. And that lack of completeness gnaws at us. It it makes us question our life, our career, and our purpose. And that's where I find a lot of people mid-career, very successful executives, but not getting any joy out of their work. They want the money. They like the money. It allows them to run a family. It is important for them. Yet, a sense of satisfaction is elusive. And the reason for that, of course, is that we are feeling incomplete because we haven't expressed our desire to serve others. And that is the problem that we're going to talk about. Karma yoga is a natural part of our self-expression, and yet we must learn it. Now let me switch tracks and tell you about something else. Let me tell you about the societies that we live in. A religious framework is important to understand society. So I'm going to begin with the predominant religious framework that Western societies are made around. But before that, here's a sign of our times. What's pretty obvious is that we are going through a loneliness crisis. We're going through this crisis in all major societies. The richer you are, the more lonely you seem to be. We are separated from our friends, not just because of the pandemic. Even before that, this is a trend, long time coming. We're separated from our community. We are separated from our families, but worst of all, we are separated from ourselves. We are Our own interaction with ourselves is through the medium of our technology these days. We understand our thoughts based on what somebody sent to us on WhatsApp or Twitter or whatever else. We are separated from everything that connects us. And that separation is creating a miserable individual. All of us are miserable. It's also creating miserable societies. That's the problem that that's hurting everyone. Now I'm going to let you in on a secret. This is one of my crackpot theories, so pay attention only as much as you need to, which is I believe that society's primary function of any human society or any society, it's definitely a human one, is to be an air conditioning for the emotional self. If you're exceptionally happy and you have no one to share it with, your happiness doesn't last too long. Maybe 2 hours. What are you going to do after that? How long can you run around happy? Not so long. But if you have sorrow, if you have something that you're unhappy with, if you don't have anyone to share that with, your sorrow persists. You continue to be in a negative frame for a long period of time. And so it is the function of a society to keep us in a narrow, comfortable range of existence emotionally, to share in the sorrows and to also share in the happiness and joy. And the breakdown in the connection that we have to each other is creating high, jagged mental states. We are going through extreme happiness and extreme sadness within a period of 2 hours. And that's the problem that this and every modern society has to address. Now, that also happens to be the definition of dharma. Not in the Gita, but elsewhere in the Mahabharata, after the Gita had been spoken, Sri Krishna again has a conversation with Arjun where he describes the true purpose of dharma. Dharma is that which sustains the society. Dharma is that which ensures the well being and progress of humanity and society at large. And so you can infer the lack of connection that we have to each other, the lack of social glue that we have with each other, is also a breakdown of dharma. Dharma, not in the religious sense, but in the sense that we've identified here. A lack of interest in lokasamgraha. What is lokasamgraha? An interest in the welfare of society. And that's what we need to rekindle. Now, a few of us got together. I've put in a little word from our advertisers, which is me. If you like to watch some of my other talks, you can go to YouTube. Um, and you can go to YouTube with this link through your camera. Now, a few of us got together in the Bay Area a few years ago, about more than 3 years ago, and thought about this problem. How do we take the thousands of years, hundreds of generations of accumulated wisdom from the Hindu tradition that's available to us, but yet not put into use in daily life and not available to future generations? As we learn to become parts of a diaspora civilization, how do we continue the transmission of our tradition? How do we continue to make sure that our tradition has advantages, brings an advantage into everyday life for us, for our future generations? 30 generations out, people are still able to benefit from the accumulated wisdom in the Hindu tradition. With that knowledge, we decided to start the Hindu Community Institute. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as well. But first, other religions, like I was talking about. Now, the Western society is designed around the Abrahamic religions, which tend to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday oriented. These are organized religions. And there's a high concentration of spiritual care needs in on your Friday, Saturday, or Sunday conversations, which is the same person, hold on, the same person is ministering to your spiritual needs. That same person is praying to God on your behalf, possibly, is also giving sermons to describe what it says in the scriptures, and is available for confidential advice. One-stop shop for spiritual care. Now, that's the model on which Western societies have been built. The Indian and Dharmic societies tend not to be built that way. The Dharmic societies tend to have a far more spread out organization, which is to say, for the same problems, you might go to a guru to talk about your spiritual needs, not religious, but spiritual needs. You might go to the temple to pray directly to the deities. You don't need to. You might go to a Shastri, someone who understands the Shastras, to talk about what the scripture says. And you might go to your neighborhood uncle, aunt, or astrologer to talk about confidential matters. It's a very spread out society. Now imagine taking people from this society, which is self-organizing and seemingly chaotic, and placing us in a organized society. What happens is everything comes apart. We have no one to turn to for advice. We have no one to turn to for spiritual counsel. We have no one to turn to understand what is it that our ancestors figured out that is useful to me today. And that's what the Hindu Community Institute ended up working on as a problem that we wanted to remedy. But it turns out the solutions that we worked on were quite interestingly relevant also to the organized religions. Why? Because of the rise of spiritual but not religious people. People have stopped, lowered the number of people going to churches, and churches is coming down significantly year after year. There is a de-churching in many countries in the West, and a lot more people now consider themselves spiritual but not religious. So they too are coming apart at the seams, and the model we are designing, it turns out, is very interesting to other people of other religious backgrounds as well. Now, let me tell you what happens in life. The modern apartment life is basically you live apart from everybody else and in a state of loneliness all the way through. There's no one to share with. You have friends in quotes on the internet that you can get extremely angry with, outrage yourself into anger. That's an apartment life. Now, the ideal modern life is life with support. You have friends to talk to. Yeah, if you have a death in the family, a friend consoles you. If you have career questions, you have someone to talk to, you have disputes in the family or aging issues, you have someone to talk to. That's an ideal modern life. But now juxtapose against that the rich Hindu traditions of life, celebrating the stages of life from brahmacharya to grihastha to vanaprastha to, to sannyasa, but also celebrating the passage of time and the stages of life, all the stages before birth to long after death, all the celebrations and all the rituals that bring a certain richness to life. Juxtapose those to the life you were just having, which seemed to be a series of random events with no understanding of the passage of time in your life or in society at large. Put those together, and you have a idealized Hindu community life where your friends and family are available to talk to you when you need support, and you are marking the passage of time together through community activities. This is the idealized life. This is how we'd like to live. But there's a problem. The problem is, remember how I told you that we come from a self organizing society and we find ourselves in the diaspora in an organized religion type of society. So we don't have places to go to. Most Hindus don't necessarily go to temples or feel obliged to go to temples, and that's okay. How do we provide spiritual care to everyone in the community, not just the Hindus, of course? How do we make sure that there is a sense of community and bonding that we have with each other? With that in mind, we created the Counselor of Hindu Tradition course. And, and through this course, where it says you can learn this, through this course, you can now function as a member of the extended family for everyone in the community. People need advice on, for example, if there's a death in the family, who do you turn to? You're going to have a birth in the family, who do you turn to? But not just life and death. What about life issues, parenting issues? Your kids are getting married, you are getting married, and you want to take advice from someone. You're going through extreme, work distress. Who do you talk to? You're going through extreme unanticipated happiness, and you're going crazy with that happiness. Who do you talk to? That is the realm of what's called spiritual care. And that is available, and you can learn it. Now, put the first part of my talk and this part of the talk together, which is you have a need to serve other people. You have an innate desire to serve other people, and everyone needs help in what? In their spiritual care. Now, can you express your inner desire to serve by learning to provide spiritual care to other people? This isn't the job of a temple purohit whose job is to tend to the deity. This isn't the job of a psychologist or a doctor, but it's somewhere in the middle. This is the job for someone in the family, a family elder or a community elder. That's the thing that you're learning as part of this process. And so this is truly a new model for spiritual care. Now, the interesting thing is uh, that this leads to the creation of chaplaincy. Now, chaplaincy comes from a Christian construct, but and it pastors could become chaplains and tend to the spiritual needs of their flock. But lately, in the last few decades, spiritual care has evolved out. Chaplaincy has also evolved away from just being a Christian construct. But the problem with becoming a chaplain as a Hindu is you're trained in a Abrahamic framework. For example, in an Abrahamic framework, or at least in a Christian framework, you might go to someone in a hospital who's who's who needs to be talked to. As they say in Hindi movies, "इनको दवा नहीं दुआ की जरूरत है." So someone comes to you and says, "Can I pray for you?" And that works in the Christian construct because there is someone who prays on your behalf because they're closer to God. In our case, our God is right here in our heart. We don't need someone to pray for us. So for Hindus to become chaplains, it was difficult because it's a completely different foundational structure. What we've got now is people come into our course. The Counselor of Hindu Tradition course is a 9-month online course. We've run the course for 3 years now, and we're starting to run it again for the 4th year. And this is a 9-month course. We only work on Sundays, and we get really interesting teachers, and I'll show you some of those. But now after the course, you can also continue to do a chaplaincy program, which allows you to now, one second, let me switch, there, which allows you to now serve in hospitals and universities as a chaplain. And that's how, again, you can express your desire to serve in the community. Now, our website is hinduci.org. And of course, the Learn to Serve page is where you go to learn more about the Counselor of Hindu Tradition course. The philosophical foundation of this course is the action philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. We teach Bhagavad Gita, we talk to you about essential counseling skills, and of course, knowledge and wellness. Now, who teaches is interesting. This is us in the board. Let me just get to the faculty. We have some of the most interesting teachers and speakers that come in and teach at the program. We have people teaching us what happens in an emergency room. We have people coming in to talk about what happens in the end of life, what happens in palliative care situations. A very wide-ranging and very accomplished set of speakers come in and teach in this program. So it's always very fascinating to come in and talk. We also partner with a lot of Hindu Vedic organizations, but also civic and other organizations. We're truly a very well spread organization. I was telling you a little bit about the chaplaincy. Let me show you that. So now you go to the website, you'll see it. We are now, you come and do our course, you do the interreligious chaplaincy program, you can actually get employed as a chaplain in hospitals or universities, some caveats notwithstanding. And that's really the model for spiritual care that we're building out, not just for us in the Hindu community, but for everybody else, because the learnings that we have from the Hindu tradition are actually universal. They happen to be the learnings that all cultures have had arrived at. Possibly most cultures that have lived long enough have arrived at the same conclusions, but most of them don't remember. They don't have the continuity. Hindu tradition has the continuity, the richness of expression, and you have an opportunity to continue that for the benefit of everyone in the society, which is Loka Sangraha, and for the benefit of future generations. So I've talked to you about three things really. I've talked to you about Karma Yoga and how that is an essential part, should be an essential part of your yogic practice. I've talked to you about spiritual care, which is how all of us need spiritual care. And you can learn, which is the third part, how to offer that spiritual care to members of your community. And with that, I'm going to pause. If you have questions or comments, I'd love to take them on here.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, this is about Karma Yoga again. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says two things. One is, whatever you do, you offer it to me. So that you will be detached from the fruits of that action. Second is, Nishkam Karma Yoga. Don't expect anything from what you do. So this, how do you put this in practice? It's a very difficult concept to understand.
Yeah. So the first part of this is the spirit of surrender, which is surrendering your individualized self. But in order to do that, you have to truly understand what is your place in this creation. The problem that the Buddhists will tell you as well as from the Hindu, it's a universal dharmic construct, is the problem is the way we are seeing the world, there's something wrong with it. We're trained to see the world in a particular way where we have a sense of self, which is identified with this body. When I hear my name and I think of my name, I think of this physical form. And we separate ourselves from the rest of the world, maybe at the surface of the skin. But we own things, and those are also added to our physical body, our sense of self. So the problem that we have is we have a misplaced sense of self. Once you understand that the same energy, the same consciousness that is animating the insides of me is also animating the rest of the world, you realize the essential connectedness of everything. In Gita, Sri Krishna says, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma. So that which knows that all of this, everything in creation is Vasudeva, God himself. At that point, the need to serve transmutes from an individualized need to serve my individualized self to a need to serve the community, to serve the society, because You're serving God in everything that you do. So, how to achieve that, to answer your question, is to truly understand that my sense of self is misplaced. I have learned an incorrect perception of my own individuality, and which is already true. If you paid any 2 seconds of attention to your situation, you would know that already. Between yesterday and today, your physical state has changed. You've eaten food, and the person you were chemically and physically yesterday, you are not that today. The continuity that we experience in our own self is that of consciousness, not in the physical form. And once you recognize that that light of consciousness that animates that illuminates your inner self is also the same consciousness that's pervading all through the universe, which is Ishavasya Upanishad as well. So once you realize that, the need to serve automatically becomes a need to serve all creation and not just your individualized self. That's how you practice it. Nishkam karma, which is the second part of your question, how do you arrive at, is the same way, which is once you realize that, and Srila Prabhupada said this, if you water the leaves, the fruit doesn't come out, right? If you water the roots, the fruit will come out. And of course, the tree's nature is to have excess fruit. You will get the fruits, but you have to water the roots. It's the same with karma. If you work to serve society, then fruits will come. But you have the confidence of knowing that if I serve society, fruits will come anyway. I don't have to worry about the fruits. I have to just focus on the task at hand. That is nishkama karma. It is somehow, some teachers have interpreted that as not being interested in enjoying the fruits in the world, or not enjoying the lives that they are put here to serve. That is not the case. It is not a negative philosophy. It's a very positive and affirming philosophy. So I hope I've answered your questions. There's a couple of other hands raised. Samirji?
Yeah, Gauravji, I had a experience in USA where my family member was in the operation theater at midnight, 2 o'clock, and four people from the church were stationed in the hospital. They approached me, they talked to me. I felt nice, but that was the moment I wished there was some Hindu person who were there. I could talk to him. So my question is, how much coverage have we done in USA? Like how many hospitals have we covered?
Yeah, so we're bootstrapping everything. So we have about 70 volunteers, and we are we're starting a new class this summer, so you can come join the class as well. And so 70 volunteers across 7 different states in the United States. But we really haven't built out our volunteer organization so far, as in fully. We're still putting it out because there are some things that you need to know. This is a very litigious country. You can't just walk up to someone and offer help. You have to do it in a way that is legally safe. You also have to learn to serve, because there are questions you can't ask, there are things that you cannot solve, and there are ways you don't want to engage with people. So you have to learn to be safe for the sake of the people that you serve and for yourself. So it takes some degree of organization, but with your support and everybody else's support, our expectation is that over the next 5 years, we will have 108 chaplains coming out. We call it the Pathway 108, the website I was showing you, where we will train 108 people in the next 5 years that will serve as chaplains in all those situations you've described. But you're right about sitting by the bedside in a hospital. People need to talk to someone. I'll give you another example. A friend of mine, I was describing what we do, and he said something that it hadn't touched me until that point. He said his father was ill, and it was one of those make or break type deals where the odds of surviving the operation were very iffy. Right, his father could survive or not survive. He says, Gaurav, I drove my father that morning of the operation, and I didn't dare to talk to my father because for that 1 hour, it was the longest 1 hour of my life. I didn't know what to ask him. I didn't know what to talk to him about. Ideally, he would have wanted, his heart wanted to say, you know, Father, Papa, is there something you'd like to tell me before, before you go in? Are there any things you'd like to share with me? And he didn't dare to ask that conversation. He didn't know how to approach that. Now, imagine if there was a family elder who was present in that conversation, who could break or catalyze that conversation. Imagine if his father thankfully survived and is doing well, but if he hadn't survived, imagine the burden of guilt he carries in his heart, that he could have had this conversation but didn't. And that's what we want to do, which is have these conversations that we ought to have. So bedside at hospitals, this is very typical. And the problem, of course, is that we don't know how to have these conversations. No one does. That's why you have family elders and community elders precipitating these conversations. So it's very important for Hindus to do this, because otherwise we're going to have the sort of situation where, if you accept my framework of divinity, then I will pray for you. Otherwise, I will not pray for you. And there's a lot of this last minute conversion type business that goes on, for the simple reason because people need help. People want to be talked to. People are clinging on to the help that's available to them. And it's a shame on us that for a rich culture with so much depth, we're not able to create this service. Thank you for asking that, Samirji.
I have listened to your discourse. My one question is, this Karma Siddhanta, one Charvaka debunked all this Karma Siddhanta. How can you tell us about Charvaka? Because he says body gets the Chaitanya from the food. What we do in the Shraddha, that reaches to the Paraloka. And if somebody is away from the town, can he be fed like that? And whatever the bali we give in Yajna Kunda, if that goes to the heaven, how can we give the, how can we, we can kill our fathers to send them to heaven. These are the Charvaka's lines. How you are relating to this Karma Siddhanta? This is my question. Maybe odd for this session, but I want this explanation for this.
Yeah, it's a longer question. It's a very interesting question. So Charvaka philosophy is not just one school of ancient philosophy. It's also very present today. Eat, drink, and be merry is a very common materialistic construct. That we are what we eat, and why there's nothing else. Who knows what the heck happens after death? And so why do something? It's a way of looking at the world that again we don't have time to go into the detail today, but what we know from our tradition is that it is a valid but often discredited school of philosophy, and there's very logical arguments against it. Again, I don't have time to get into it today. It's not relevant to the topic that we were getting in today, but I'm happy to address this to you in a separate conversation.
How do you bundle being a CHT? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, Counselor of Hindu Tradition.
Engaged practicing professional.
Yes, that is a great question, Hariji. In fact, most of the people who do our course, a good proportion of the people who do our course tend to be working professionals who intend to continue working. I myself am a working professional, and I have no intention of stopping to work because what else is out there? So people do this because it fills out a gap in their life. As a working professional, are you getting the sense of service and the satisfaction and joy from service in your work? If not, you're going to have to find it elsewhere. By doing this course or doing something like this and serving in the community, you can fill out the portfolio of your life. You can fill out your quota of joy by serving other people at your own time and at your own pace. That's the way every society should function. So yeah, you don't need to give up your work or your career aspirations. If anything, what we've learned is people have reported to us that they've become better parents and better professionals as a result of understanding the Hindu tradition and its richness and its orientation towards work. So I'll give you an example. Uh, People get, we have, when we graduate, we have the families come and talk about what's happened. And three sets of children came to us and said, our parents are better listeners and better parents as a result of doing this course, because that's what they're learning, more empathy. Tell me which profession does not require more empathy. Tell me which professional would you do poorly in if you have a sense of service towards your customers and your colleagues. There's not too many professions where you would do poorly by learning all these skills. It's that we don't have avenues to learn them. Modern education does not address this spirit of service. And that's the gap that all of us have in our education and we're experiencing in our lives.
What is your advice at the end of life?
Yeah.
Not resuscitate. Resuscitate. I think that's what it means.
Yeah, so we actually teach advanced healthcare directives. It's part of our curriculum, which is we teach how to think about the idea of advanced healthcare directive and how to actually make decisions and communicate those to your family. Of course, whether you want to be resuscitated or not is up to you and depends on how you look at your own life. I'm not going to give you advice personally, but we talk about what are the, when you've made up your mind, how to make up your mind and how to then also communicate it to your family. Again, these are not conversations we have as Indians and Hindus and certainly in the modern society. These are hard conversations to have. But there is this thing called Advanced Healthcare Directive where you can write and specify in writing what your instructions are. For example, for everybody else's benefit, what he's asking is, can you communicate to your family that if I'm in a situation where I have passed out, I have essentially become unconscious, and my life expectancy or my expectancy of leading a full and complete life upon resuscitation are low, maybe I've reached that state, then do not resuscitate me. It's okay to let me go. Now the thing is, if you don't explicitly say that, then what happens is your family is going to have to make that decision, and it is not a good decision for them because it's hard on everyone. And it's very important for all of us to write out and communicate our healthcare directive, advanced healthcare directive, to our families. That's a great question, by the way. Another question I'm seeing is from Tapashji, which is the key to success in life is unselfish work or nishkam karma as per Gita. How do you do it in your day-to-day work? Tapashji, so it's a great question. How I do it in my day-to-day work is simply like Prasadji was saying, I dedicate all my work to God. And I don't shy away from work. There are other parts of Karma Yoga. I do a lot of different things. I'm a busy professional, I'm a parent, and I also run an institute, but I move from topic to topic without getting stuck to it. I'm able to move from task to task because if you have nishkam karma, you get into the task fully, you do it, and then you don't stick. The word in Sanskrit is lipatna in Hindi, as they say. You're not sticking to the task. You moved on. You do the next thing, and then when the circle comes back to task number one, you finish task number one and keep moving. It's a skill you can acquire, and it's a skill every professional must acquire. Otherwise, you're carrying your cricket scores in your head, not focusing on work at hand. So it's the same. It is a practice, but by learning to meditate, and by learning to do your bhakti properly, you can actually learn to work with nishkam karma with 100% confidence that whatever you're doing is all you can do, and you'll move on. Fruits will come, not come, it doesn't matter. The bearing of the fruits is not your business. You don't have to throw the fruits away. If you're receiving money as a result of your work, it's all good. But if you don't receive money, that's also good. And that's the spirit to carry. And you'll see, in my own experience, I've always got more than I thought I would. It just comes later and in a different form. I get help, I get support, all of this happens. Again, the expectation is it's okay. I'm doing the best I can from every moment. And the next moment, something else will happen and we'll deal with that.
Yes, sir. Sir, how is it that the rishis or the noble people were able to transfer the fruits of their good deeds to the other person, like a disciple or a son? So, how does it basically work on the karma theory if we keep that in mind?
Yeah, yeah. So how can you receive blessings, prasad, as they say? How you can take, you've accumulated merit or punya and then pass it on to somebody else. It's a very, complex theory, and very often a very a topic subject to much debate and speculation. So again, not getting into speculation, but the thing is to understand that in physical material terms, right? If I go as myself, there's a certain amount of power that my individuality has. But if I go as an organization, I have a different power. The same guy might represent the government of India or the government of the United States and gets the respect accorded to the government. But if they go as an individual private citizen, they may get some respect, surely, but not the same respect as that accorded to a government. You have to understand that power can be accumulated in abstract forms, and that power, because accumulated in an abstract form, can be transmitted. And it's true for power in the world. It's true for money. It's also true for good deeds and so on. This experience of prasada, right, of a showering of blessings, is really simply getting. It's like the equivalent of streamlining. So you see those birds that are flying in a V shape, right? There's one bird which is doing most of the flapping. All the other birds are riding in their slipstream, a little more efficient than the bird in front, and then they keep switching sides. It's the same conceptually with the question that you've raised as well.
Namaste, everyone. My question is, like, you have classes which is going to begin in fall, and then there is also an opportunity to volunteer. So do they go hand in hand, or do volunteering start only after all the classes are done? And is it a 9-month, what it says?
Yeah. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. Some people volunteer with us before. We created our own cryptocurrency. This is a joke in the sense that we call it Om dollars. We do actually track it. It is not jokey, but we call it Om dollars, which is you can pay for the course in Om dollars, which is you do volunteer work with us in building the institution, and that allows you to pay for the course. But you don't need to just work to pay the course. You can actually volunteer and build the institution. I'll give you an example of that. Last year, when the pandemic began, from this room right here, I teach yoga as well at the nearby temple, and my class was scheduled the next day, but a lockdown was announced. So I used my business Zoom. I said, here's my Zoom account, or everyone who comes to the physical class, come to the Zoom, right? And it turned out it was a success. Another teacher said they want to do the same. And then we said, okay, we'll announce classes for the next 2 weeks of the pandemic, if you remember those days, last March. And then we kept adding teachers, and the pandemic kept getting extended. And now we have 50 teachers, yoga teachers from around the world. And we offer about 40 plus classes every week. We've done more than 2,200 classes in the last 1 year. That's how you can volunteer. You bring your skill and use it to serve other people. By the way, if you would like to access free yoga classes, again, go to Hindu CI and go to Wellness, and you can get access to all our free yoga classes. They're classes for seniors and kids and everybody else.
Now tension and depression, these are the main culprits for human civilization. So what to do we now follow to be tension free and free from depression?
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm going to give you a slightly more detailed answer. Thank you for asking. Tension is a word that comes from physics, and essentially stress and strain are also words that come from physics. The pulling of a rope cable or a wire cable, and by putting more weight on it, is the original science experiment. Tension is a sign of our modern times. 80% of the diseases I read somewhere are lifestyle diseases. Hypertension, diabetes, a lot of these diseases come from a lack of balance in the physical self. And there are many reasons for that. Our sleep, our diet, our exercise, and our mental outlook are all causing this lack of balance. And of course, if you go to yogic theory, there's the three gunas, which is rajas, tamas, and sattva. This is excess of rajas, which is outbound and aggressive. The equivalent of if you're driving a car, you put your foot on the accelerator and you never took it off. So will you have accidents? Of course, you're going to have accidents. And also, you put your foot on the accelerator, then accident, and then very quickly put your foot on the brake. That's what we're doing with our body, which is instead of being in a state of relaxed attention, we're always in a state of tension. Our attention has been stolen away by everything outside. You read social media, you're outraged. You look at WhatsApp, you're angry and you're upset and fearful. This fear and anger is driving away our energy. And so we live in a state of tension. This is a sign of our times. How do you break away from that? That is the next question. How you break away from that is very simple. One, you bring balance to your life, learn meditation, learn pranayama, learn basic yoga postures as well. Pranayama is a great way to bring your internal systems in balance. Again, not the topic of today's meeting, but I'll still tell you, inside the body, right below the surface of your consciousness, is the autonomic nervous system, which is essentially the brakes and accelerators of your inner body. They're out of sync right now. Right now, you're over accelerating and over braking. You want to find balance. And pranayama allows you to talk to your inner body and find that inner balance. Once your breathing is stabilized, your digestion will improve, your heart will improve as well, and overall outlook towards life will improve as well. Devotional practices are also very important. Why? Imagine if I ask you to flex your muscles like this and keep them flexed, right? What's going to happen? After a while, your muscles are going to start aching. If you feel an ache in the body, that's the reason your muscles are tight. If you think you're doing all the work, then your mental muscle that I'm doing all the work is very tight. I have to do everything. I'm responsible for everything. I have to do the X, Y. You're overemphasizing your individual self. Learn to relax in the source of the self, which is into God. Learn to surrender to God. And so if you have a well-developed devotional practice, it allows you to relax into God. It allows you to realize that you're not moving the world. You're not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. The world works fine with or without you. You can lighten the load on yourself, which allows you to be kinder and more gentler to yourself. So my advice, yoga, meditation, bhakti are all very important for scientific reasons. I'm not giving you any mumbo jumbo.
So Karma Yoga and Punarjanma are tightly linked. Of course, the three yoga paths you mentioned all go together. So any comment on Karma Yoga's relation to past and future lives?
Sure. Several things. First is you have to recognize that what you're saying is karma and not karma yoga, which is the relation of karma and the law of karma to past and future life. Here's the thing. If you're born to a rich family, 90% of your life's facts are related to that, right? Which is to say you're born to a rich family and therefore 90% of the things that happen to you are related to this accident of birth. Now you could say it's accidental, it's completely random. But then if 90% of the facts of your life are based on some randomness, then why even bother with the remaining 10%? Recognizing that reincarnation, understanding the fact of reincarnation is essential to understanding or maintaining the belief that there is order in the world. Why do bad things happen to good people? You can't explain that. And if you're running your life, as many materialists do, on this thing that there is some order within the moment, then you don't have a useful framework to run your life, because everything seems to be random. And if everything is random, how to lead your life, how to make your decisions is impossible for you to do. Everything is random. But we know life is not random. There is research onto reincarnation, which I'm not going to get into. There is scientific research on it. But even logically, it makes sense to understand that the only way you can understand this law of cause and effect is to extend the law across in periods of time, not in an individual life and not definitely in the very moment. And so karma theory is intricately linked with the reincarnation. Plus, we have direct revelations, of course, from Shrutis and Smritis, and there's a bunch of scientific research that has gone into reincarnation, which again we're not going to get into. Gokulanji, you had a question about our organization. The organization I was referring to is the Hindu Community Institute. Let me show you the link here. You're seeing the link at the bottom, which is on the right over here, somewhere here, right? Okay, here. I'm positioning my finger right here, this one.
Right.
Hindu Community Institute was started by Silicon Valley professionals. We are affiliated, we're all born and proud Hindus practicing, and our interest is in taking advantage of our rich tradition to improve lives of the people today. And because religion and tradition are a use it or lose it proposition, you don't use it, you lose it. Our interest is let's use it so that we can transmit this to future generations. It has taken hundreds of generations for us to accumulate this wisdom. It'll be ridiculous for us to waste it if we don't transmit it. So that's the organization. We are partnered. You go to our website. We have 200 volunteers. Everyone's a professional doing something. Very accomplished people are involved here, and all of us come at it with a spirit of loka samgraha, the welfare of society. Prasadji, back to you. You were saying something.
No, I think we have answered. I mean, you have answered all the questions in the chat and as well as raised hands. Definitely, spiritual care and chaplaincy is definitely a new topic for discussion. I think you provided a great perspective on what can be done and also what you're already doing. With that, I think we can close this session on the dot 1 hour. Thank you for giving us your time, Gauravji, and also all the participants in the audience who joined today. Appreciate everybody's contribution. Thank you so much.
Namaskar. Thank you very much.